Hi, welcome to spend a moment with me, and thank you for being here. Thank you for being open to listen to these thoughts. And today I'm going to chat a little bit about internalized patriarchy and how it shows in my life. What's my experience about it? What's my sort of definition about it? And just for the starter, as a beginning of this chat, I want to just say that this is my experience, and maybe you resonate with parts of it and some parts not. Maybe you see some parts of it in your life, maybe not. And even if I go use term we or you, mm, this is like, I don't mean to make it like black and white or like not nuanced and not like, I don't want to generalize. So I might do that unconsciously or accidentally, but I don't like mean to generalize this. So this is mainly my experience, and you take whatever you take. So um I've been on this topic sort of like more consciously about 1.5 years, since I started learning about feminine and masculine energies, or well, 2 years ago. And then to call it like patriarchy or give it that name, this internalized imbalance, this distortion between the feminine and the masculine energies, um, that has come to the picture like about 8, 9 months ago. And sort of the more conscious and deliberate divesting from this oppressive patriarchal perspective, consciousness, way to see life, way to appreciate the energies that life consists of. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and it's ongoing, and probably will go on for a very long time. And as long as we live in a collective patriarchal consciousness, which we do, to my opinion, um, no matter really where you are, there are apparently few communities somewhere who are more of like matriarchal consciousness collectives, but the world collective consciousness is very much patriarchal. And in growing in that, like, in some point, even if your home environment was more balanced, more equally valuing the feminine and the masculine aspects of life, you would still enter the collective consciousness in some point. So I see that there, like, that it is valuable to admit and acknowledge that this has affected my way of seeing life, way of seeing and valuing different traits, different energies. And by acknowledging it, that's like the first step, right? So you cannot fight against something if you don't like truly honestly acknowledge what might have been your part in it. So this is sort of my take and my perspective coming into feminism and coming into equal rights, is that to acknowledge that I have very much been rather unconscious, complicit in all of it, and how I can in my daily life start to divest from that, start to not feed that system. And those ways can be small and invisible in a lot of ways. It's about internal talk. It's about your own internal valuing of these feminine and masculine aspects and energies and traits within you. So there's so much we can do, sort of like working as a Trojan horse, working from inside as like an undercover agent. Not to say that the visible activism wouldn't be as important, but that's more of the, how I see it, that's more of the masculine side of this activism, is the visible one. And if we only appreciate that, then we are again valuing masculine over the feminine. And I'm thinking where to start this. This is like such a huge thing. I hope I can honor this topic and I can honor my own understanding about it, putting it into words. So let's see. So let's maybe work our way through from the more sort of like obvious things. So how me having internalized the patriarchal belief system as I grew up has resulted, what I've noticed by now, I mean, as long as I said, I've not been on this journey like super long or anything. So this is where I'm now. So the more obvious, visible ways that the not so subtle ways, but still can be really unconscious. And I do this all the time still, even though I'm like trying very hard to be conscious about it. For example, like a very, very real example of my life is like how my mind appreciates feedback and opinion and appreciation from masculine, from a man, more than from a woman. And another nuance of that is like how my mind values feedback from somebody who is sort of like, how would I call it, intellectually educated, you know, like gone to university, has a degree of something, over somebody who has life experience. And like looking for this approval or the approval of a man has been so much more important than the approval of a woman. And how like something out there is always more important than what is here in this present moment, what is right in front of me. Like the now we are maybe going more to the subtle, and I don't know if these need to be separated so strictly, but how the patriarchalized mind is like this megalomaniac who has these huge visions, and I mean, it's not like the ego or the mind or the masculine is bad. Let's say this. Okay, let's say this here. It's not that it's bad. It's just that when there is imbalance in valuing the masculine and the feminine, they both get distorted. Also, the masculine gets distorted. It gets like power crazy. You know, it goes crazy. It goes like it's on drugs. You know, it's on steroids. and all these things that in harmony would be supporting they become destructive. And also the feminine sort of goes into the distorted, destructive ways when the balance is not there. And yeah, so this huge sort of like bigness, I see this in a way like, I mean, feminine can have a huge vision, but like this need for bigness and for conquering the world. This to me is a masculine aspect, and this appreciation or the neglect of what is already here and what is in the present moment true, the reality, actually your current reality, is like underappreciated, and the mind goes into like planning stuff and appreciating everything else over the present moment. So the present moment to me is feminine. And you can disagree with these, and I would love to have conversation about these, like what I present as feminine aspects. And there is nuance that I'm learning more and more, that it's not so, you cannot separate them into like, categories like this. Like staying in the present moment requires both masculine and feminine energy. So it's not like it's all just feminine. And so the masculine would appreciate everything outside there, and sort of like over the, for example, what you have in front of you, your children, your like everyday life. Okay, so I made notes, and that's not good. That's very distracting for me to have them in front of me and trying to go like. So I'm going to try to come back to this present moment. What is alive right now here? What wants to be said right now here? So in my personal experience, so internalized patriarchy, it shows as like I appreciate the masculine unconsciously more than the feminine, and that manifests as this, that I appreciate the man's opinion over the woman's opinion, even if I don't want to, but I unconsciously do. It's unconsciously there. I consciously say I'm not doing that, but unconsciously I am doing that. And I think this is sort of the next step of this work, is to understand how we are so unconscious about this, that even if we decide we are feminists, and even if we decide that we want to support the feminine, this is so ingrained in the brain, in the mind, this brainwash, that it's just automatic. It's so unconscious, and it requires a lot of devotion and determination to, and willingness. Yeah, I want to say that, because determination is like, I think you can't sort of like do this all by yourself. Like part of the deal is to trust the invisible support, which would be the feminine, and how you just being willing and asking, setting an intention that I want to divest from this. I want to see what I'm doing here to keep up this current paradigm. Open my eyes, please. Then it's not all on your shoulders. You get help, you get support. And in the more subtle ways, how this shows is like just really sort of, I don't know if these are basic things to you, but like to me, being in this bubble already for some time, this is like sort of obvious, but so appreciating doing over being. When in balanced, they would be appreciated the same way. It's not like you have to earn rest by doing something. It's like they are both very much needed in life, in the growing process, in expansion. You can't expand just by doing and under appreciating resting and just resting the minimal amount, like. And it's also like very much has been showing in my own experiences this super like valuing logical mind and intellectual understanding way over intuition, sort of just knowing. You can't, there's so much that but you can't explain with your logical mind or put into words. It's just like and this, I didn't have that trust in that knowing. It had to be cultivated, and it has to be cultivated all the time. So this was like non-existent for me. There was like, I need scientifically backed up research. And this is also like trusting the scientific research, the external proof over your own experience. So if research says that, or if doctors or say that this is how it is and your experience is different, you would override your own experience and neglect that and like disregard it and this must be the truth, like taking the truth from the external authors rather than your own inner authority, your own experience, like not believing your own experience, basically gaslighting yourself. And I feel like this is the conditioning. So, and and as I said, appreciating everything out there over this present moment right here, appreciating valuing the mind's wish to continue doing something over the body's need to rest, over the body's cues, like overriding the cues of the body. Like, I believe strongly that this is why we are sicker and sicker in a way, is that we're just completely overriding. We are not listening. We are not even hearing, because we've been, as I said, I say we a lot of times, might not be your case. So I have been overriding my body's cues and sensations so long that I didn't hear them at all. Like I use this kind of metaphor that I've been like cut from here. So I've been a living like head, and the rest of this has been like just like numb. And there's so much wisdom, so much cues, and so much like I can't even like describe it. It's just something that needs to be experienced yourself, and hopefully you do. And it's just this general like valuing everything that I can understand and everything that I cannot understand with my logical mind is like closed out, like that's not necessary, or like how I feel like the patriarchalized mind sort of it demands for sameness, because it has this need to understand everything and cannot understand something that isn't like its own experience. So if someone experiences life differently, if someone else's truth is different than mine, then that would be like not possible, because I cannot understand it, and I cannot stand things that I cannot understand with my mind. So those things have to be shut down, those things have to be closed off. And this is where, like all this is born. I feel like all the xenophobia, like being afraid of something that I cannot like completely understand. So like someone else is born in a different body or has different life experiences, and they just experience things differently, and I cannot accept that because I cannot understand it. So letting go of the need to always understand everything, and appreciating diversity instead of sameness, right? And understanding that there's value in things that I cannot understand completely. There's still value in those things. And the patriarchalized mind values everything that can be seen and touched and is concrete and manifested and in form over the invisible part of it. The patriarchalized mind values the eternal spring and summer, the visible growth of things over autumn and winter, when things are not really dead. I mean, this was something, I don't remember where this came from. I would wish to give credit to this person, but I mean, like in winter, the trees and stuff, they're not dead. There's life inside, even though the leaves are gone, the flowers are gone. And this process of resting, autumn and winter, this is as much needed as the spring and summer. The blooming, the flourishing cannot come without the other part. But in our crooked, distorted view, it's like, let's get the rest done as quickly as possible so we can be productive, so we can produce the fruit, the flower, the money, the form. And this is where we get sick, because there needs to be balance there. And so autumn and winter are the feminine aspects of life, and spring and summer are the masculine. And also like just this relentless need to be always producing, to be worthy, and this view and this belief that you're only worthy when you're producing the fruit, when you're delivering the baby, when you are actually producing the product, and not valuing equally the invisible part of creation, the growing of the roots, the envisioning, the what else, whatever there is in the invisible part. A tree cannot grow without that part that we cannot see. It cannot grow without roots, but we cannot see the roots. But the tree doesn't exist without the roots. And so the form, the visible product, doesn't exist without first being the invisible part. And still, we value the visible product more than the invisible part. And I wanna say something about dark feminine here, how I understand dark feminine. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but I understand it as this. So it would be the death of a cycle, and like in our life we go multiple of these cycles in a lifetime, and there is multiple deaths and births, and and patriarchy sort of tries to push that away, like that there would be just life, but it tries to close its eyes from the death part of it, from the rest part of it, from the, like, that there is this well, death needed to be birth again, to be sustainable, to be sustainable. There is no sustainability in always blooming, in always being in spring and summer. That is, I mean, I come from the northern hemisphere, so if this sounds like, if you live somewhere where the four seasons aren't in the same way visible as here, then maybe this isn't the metaphor that is most useful to you. But still, like, nature is cyclical. We are cyclical because we are part of nature, no matter whether you are, what gender you are, but especially women with the hormonal cycle would be a good example of a cyclical being. And yeah, and so the dark feminine, like, sort of like, as the longer we try to keep up the eternal summer, the eternal production, the harder the dark feminine has to come and sort of strike and remind you that this is not sustainable. You can't do this. And this is what I see as, like, this collective state of burnout and sort of increase in mental illnesses and stuff, is that we've been so long trying to stay in this eternal summer, and now it's the dark feminine force that is coming and, like, telling us, like, you can't do that, that's not sustainable, and reminding that there is rest needed. And then, of course, if you've been very long in that, trying to prolong the summer, maybe then you need to rest a little longer than if you would have been sustainably trying to, like, the summer, the peak, and then you rest and then you come back to the summer. But patriarchal mind doesn't value the rest. It doesn't give enough time for rest. There's never enough time. There's never enough time for anything in the patriarchal consciousness. And so this, very shortly, would be how I see a part of, like, what dark feminine does and how it serves us. Um, and I feel like I want to say something about this work of, like, gender equality and how, I mean, I'm in Finland. I've grown up in Finland, and we are proud of our gender equality. And still, I see that there is a lot of problems in that, and in that pride of having equal, more and more equal numbers of women in, for example, leading positions. It's problematic because we are closing our eyes from the problems that still are there very much. And I see that one of the sort of the big blind spot there is that to my opinion, is that it doesn't matter if the patriarchalized mind is in a female body. It's still a patriarchalized mind. So instead of concentrating on the external gender, we would need to come more to the under the surface and seeing, does this person embody equal relationship between their masculine and their feminine? does this person embody the valuing of the feminine traits? So it's not about how you look, how you appear, right? Because there, as I see it, there are a lot of women in leadership positions who have gotten there by presenting their masculine traits and hiding their feminine traits. It doesn't matter how this person looks like, how does the external gender look like, but this person is still having this internal imbalance and valuing and presenting the masculine traits over the feminine traits. And to see, like, not giving space for not being a linear being, but a non-linear being, cyclical being who needs rest as much as, like, rest is part of productivity. It's not rest and productivity. Rest is part of productivity. There cannot be productivity without rest in a human being, in nature. That's like machine, right? And we are not machines. And it's like hiding the softer side, hiding the messy side, hiding the non-linear side, hiding the emotional side, hiding the vulnerability. And I see that, unfortunately, that it can be even more in a female leader in this world, in patriarchy, that they have to push even harder. They have to prove that they can be like a man, but that's not equality. Even if in positions are as much men and women, and the woman got there by being like a man. That's not equality, right? And this is how I see that, unfortunately, this is gone. And now it's time to look how are these women who are in the leadership positions and also starting to completely, like, reconstruct the value system that it's valued in a leader to embody and value equally the feminine traits. And where this is also very, like, sort of visible in a very, very clear way is that the female dominated industries are paid considerably less than those industries where traditionally there have been men or that require a lot of the masculine energy. And the professions that require a lot of feminine energy, like caring professions, that they are less paid. They are as important or more even, because I mean, the society, the growth cannot exist without the roots, right? The growth cannot exist without the base. And so this is all, like, just should be turned upside down from my point of view, or not necessarily upside down, not to, like, overpower the feminine, but I think that will not happen anytime soon anyway. So I think we can quite safely, amplify the valuing of the feminine before it ever would come overpowering. We can look at that, like, well, I'm hoping for a quick change. So let's say that we can look at that in 100 years or something. And I feel like that about the female or women in leadership positions may have come out quite harshly. And I don't mean to blame any woman or any person who has a lot of feminine energy in them for having to hide that side and for having to show more of the masculine traits to survive in this paradigm. I mean, like, as long as we live in this paradigm, that's going to have to happen. And then at the same time, it's like, it comes back to this, like, how much can you acknowledge that you're feeding this paradigm? How much can you acknowledge that you are actually part of the collective? It's not like the patriarchy is out there and it's not here, but it's right here and it's in every lived experience. And I think that it's quite safe to assume that living and being like brainwashed and immersed in this culture, like growing up in this culture, makes me so unconsciously always value more the masculine, that every time I have time and dedication for that, I can like assume that I have chosen for the benefit of the masculine over the feminine, because this is how I've been programmed. So it's quite a challenging work, and also it's very rewarding work, because it does make you see life very differently right away, and it does make you appreciate the present moment, the small things, the base, and it can, to my experience, it can take away a lot of suffering, even if the work itself is challenging and painful. But in the end, it like has such a potential of, well, bringing you in harmony, right? So it's totally worth it. And I feel like this talk was really messy, but let's honor that, because that's masculine, that's feminine. Sorry, that's feminine. And messy is not necessarily less than super clear. And this is a good exercise for my own mind to let go of the need to be very clear and consistent, and just trusting that the energy of this talk, the invisible part, carries the message through, that my own process of hopefully embodying at least a little bit of this practice and this balance shows in this video, even if the talk itself seems sort of all over the place to my mind. Maybe it doesn't to yours. And yeah, and one very, very important thing that I want to say still is that we all embody masculine and feminine aspects. And so the oppression of the feminine hurts every single person on this planet. I don't think there is a human being who consists only of masculine energy and who is healthy like that. We are made from both of them, and maybe there is something, more to that. It doesn't like, and they are intertwined and they dance together within you, and you can't take one out and have a whole. You can't. You will have a whole. You cannot be whole. And yeah, it hurts every single person on this planet. It's not just that this work needs to be done for women, but it takes all of our health and well-being away if we don't appreciate and value the feminine energy as much as we do the masculine energy. And there is such a potential for healing there when we start doing this work. And for doing the work, I just wanted to like very shortly give you like ideas where you could start. So my tool, as you may know, is writing and looking the moments in my life through writing, and somatic writing. I've heard this term. I haven't really looked, but I believe that that's what I'm doing. So you write and you feel the things, and you write a little bit more and then you feel the things. um, to just like writing is a very good tool for you to see beyond what your mind can hold in that very moment, because when you write you have a trace to like, mind can only hold like a few sentences at a time, to my experience. And so when you write it down you get much deeper, and to see like, and 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 just to set the intention and the willingness to be shown this, how this works within you, and how your view is colored by the patriarchal lens, I think is like super powerful. And that's part of the deal, is to trust in the power of this mystery and this invisible thing called intention and willingness. So it doesn't have to be all like willpower and determination. And and if you feel called to this work, then like it's for sure, you're helped, you're you're assisted in that, in invisible ways that also can manifest in the visible ways. And so there's a lot of talk about somatic work. Somatic work is for sure an excellent tool, because you become familiar with your body, you become valuing the body's cues. Mindfulness work in the sense of being more in the present moment, and sort of like seeing that instead of like valuing your thoughts as the truth, your mind's creation as the truth, you start seeing that there is something underneath it, there is something bigger in you than just your mind. And so mindfulness, meditation. But I want to say a word of caution here, because this is something that has happened to me, and what I have noticed in my own journey is that the patriarchal mind, the patriarchalized ego, sees everything through that lens. So even a practice of wholeness, of balance, it sees through the lens that um, favors the masculine side, favors control, favors whatever it can understand with logical mind. And it can easily go into like these spiritual practices or these somatic practices into a way of controlling the situation rather than accepting what is here, or into like, if I do this now, then I get this, instead of just like they are tools to see and acknowledge and accept what is here right now in this present moment. And so just to be aware that that might happen, that's likely to happen in some form. um, and just trusting the journey, because really you cannot get further than you cannot understand something you cannot understand yet. And my experience is that life, like when I'm willing, when I set that intention, that life just gives me the perfect steps towards that, in a perfect order, in a way that I can understand. And there's like nothing I can do to make the process faster, nothing I can do to make the process slower, because it's just like proportionate perfectly for my own mind and my own process. And yeah, and I wanted to acknowledge my mentors. I've read a bunch of books on my journey that have for sure had their own influence in this. So one book actually that I can mention that was sort of very, very expanding for me, let's say, is called Mary O'Malley's "What's in the Way is the Way." That was a good one. But then I wanted to acknowledge my like actual sort of like mentors. So I've learned masculine and feminine energies, these distortions, and how to bring them into balance from Sarah Ann Negus and Lenka Lutonska, and about more about like the word patriarchy basically, and how it shows in our modern society, in our, like, we might think, especially in Finland, like, oh, we are not a patriarchy, but I dare to challenge that strongly. And this word patriarchy and patriarchal consciousness, ego consciousness, this was introduced to me by Sarah Durham Wilson, who leads um, Maiden to Mother work teacher training, where I'm actually right now taking part. And also my yoga teacher training teachers, Jack Boken and Hannah. I'm sorry, Hannah, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Happy Check Yoga. You can check if you want to. And if you book ideas, could be like Bell Hooks has been writing a lot about intersectional feminism, and I think that this is a good place to mention. And I'm not super familiar with her work yet. Time is limited, and I would like to read much more than I have time. So this, by the way, is one example of internalized patriarchy. Is the like need to always be on top of it, need to always know, and this intellectual learning, rather than trusting that whatever you need to know, you will know in that time, and trusting in the divine timing, trusting in the bigger picture that your mind cannot see, trusting that there is some more vast intelligence that has a more complete picture than your small mind. So the need to read a million books and to be ready or to become ready. This is a like distorted masculine way, and the acknowledgement that I'm messy here, I'm like all over the place, coming back and forth, uh, is okay and is enough and is perfect as it is. This is like me breaking the rules, right? So bell hooks, The Will to Change could be like a good one. Then one fascinating book that I haven't finished, but I would want to mention here would be Frederick Joseph's Patriarchy Blues. So, but I'm sure there are books. What bothers me a little bit is that this isn't in the books, in the literature that I've read, and in the stuff that I've studied. It's not really clearly acknowledged. So it can be a deliberate way for the teacher or the mentor or the author to not sort of scare people off with these scary words like political words, sort of like patriarchy and stuff. It can be that it's their way of like making it more accessible and sort of their um, undercover agent work. But I think that maybe in a lot of cases it's also like really just not acknowledged. So I would hope that there would be more talk about this in the spiritual world. But yeah, all in all, like the sort of the growth of the spiritual world is the way of the feminine, because it's invisible, it's not measurable. But also in there are, of course, very patriarchal structures visible that crook the whole picture. So believing a teacher's experience over your own experience, which happens a lot, I'm sure. Anyway, a long talk, I feel like, so I think it's time to stop now. And I have no idea if someone was able to listen to this. If you did definitely challenge a patriarchalized consciousness. So congrats for that, just because this is such a messy talk, and at least in my own case, like there is such, like, my mind values stuff that is clear and cohesive and has a clear structure, and this is like very hard for my own mind to accept that this talk didn't follow the set rules, the container, the box that I put it in originally, and just kind of flowed all over the place. And so let's just say that that's the energy that this talk needed to have. So thank you for being here, and I would love to hear from you. And let's see what I will talk about next time. Let me know how you like this video. Bye.